38, my great-grandfather's old farmhouse that my grandfather took over on Horse Heaven Road. Old Doc Green come down with my grandmother. And so I live about spitting distance from where that is, part of my grandfather's old farm. Horse Heaven Road was a one-lane dirt road. It wasn't much bigger than that table right there. And here's a picture of me on a horse in the middle of the road. It isn't any bigger than the horse covers most of the road. There was one lane that we lived on a corner, and that kept it from having grass in the middle, but most of the road was grass in the middle. And it was named Horse Heaven because up above me was a sharp hill, steep hill in the corner, and then a dip, and loaded horses and wagons, if they were overloaded, didn't make it, and down over the bank into Black Brook they went, and they named it. It happened a few times, so they just called it Horse Heaven when they officially named the road. Before that it was Faces Extension, Thomas Schoolhouse Road, or whatever they felt like calling it, but when they had to officially have a name, they named it Horse Heaven Road. And that's the reason why. It was only too busy. You knew everybody that was going by because there wasn't that much traffic. The only two busiest times of the year were Thanksgiving morning and April 15th. Thanksgiving, because I think everybody in the county traveled to Steventown for Deer City. And 5 o'clock in the morning till 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it was all over the place. The woods were loaded, and April 15th was the first part of deer fishing season. So they come out and fish Black Brook and everything. I remember quite a few times when I was early teenager, people would get stuck in the road, and somebody always had a horse or two around that we had some that I'd hook them up and make a 50 cents or something for towing them out and getting them back on the road, because the minute they pulled off the road, that was it. They were out of sight. So down on Horse Head, few things there. I don't know how many of you in the room remember the beacon on the hill across, up on the side hill. Till they had radar, that was a way the planes used to travel up and down the area. On the east side of the Hudson River was going north and south. They had one right here in Beacon and Steventown. They had one down in Austerlitz on a 22 corridor, more or less, that followed. And when they got, so you could never get lost in the woods coon hunting or nothing unless it was a cloudy, foggy night where it was traffic. But the planes would head west when they hit the Beacon here in Steventown to the Albany, and they'd head east to the Pittsfield Airport, and that was their way of transportation. You know, it was line of sight. That's all it was. When I was a kid, my grandfather had bought up over 1,000 acres of land from all the people that abandoned them. He had no steam sawmill on the Black Brook. He got taken out there in the 40s when Steventown flooded. Their Prickner took our outhouse out along with it, but we didn't have electricity or anything. It was just he cut ice and he delivered it to the train station down in Braeburn, because Steventown had its own ice house up here, so that's where he took all his ice, and we worked out of an ice box and a window box in the winter. My cousin Elroy Face, he was born up in the area. The first I remember him, and when I was real small, they lived down in Atwater's place on Staples Road there across from where the Heritage Center is now. And my father worked at his father, Uncle Joe, and my father worked at the chicken house here in Steventown, so we had all the wings and necks and backs we wanted. And that's where my father learned to eat raw eggs, because he got as many eggs as they wanted. They just poked a hole in them, and down they went. Until the day he died, he'd have before he walked out of the house in the morning, he'd pop an egg in his coffee cup and stir it up, and down it'd go. So, that's what they did that, but my grandfather's old house. My cousin Elroy was pitcher for Pittsburgh Pirates. When they first got started, he came home in winter, and my grandfather in the early 50s had bought a place down in Edgewater, Florida, where a lot of the local people had moved to. And Elroy lived in there in the winter when he was off work for the local contractors. So I used to, they'd drop the mail off at my house and I'd take the bike up and ride it. I remember he opened the mail one day and they had a contract for less, and he'd had a 19-2 record or 19-1 record that year, but yet he got a decrease. They didn't have all that money or agents or any of that stuff back in the 50s. It was just whatever you could get on your own. But when I got a little older, I remember first car I bought off a Cyclone, an old Dodge, and then I stopped in Steventown one day, and Bateman's there, right next to Dean Whitman's store. He had and Johnny Johnson were in there, and they had a 49 Chevy. They told me I could have for $200. It was real good shape, and they knew I didn't have that kind of money on me. And I walked in Sykes' store, and old Walt heard me talking about it, and that was related to him. So he thought it was funny. He reached under his apron, pulled a roll of money out, and took the rubber band off of it, handed me the money, and told me to go over and buy the car. So I did, but if Johnny hadn't been there, he wouldn't have sold it to me, because he was going to renege on the deal, because he knew I didn't have the money. That's why he offered me it. But anyway, I had that car, and Elroy. That was when the Brooklyn Dodgers and the Giants still played in New York City. So I had that old Chevy, and had recaps on it, and they came off, but they had a double header. I forget whether it was a Saturday or Sunday. So we left tickets there at the ticket box, so I went down and got tickets, went to the ball game. They were on the third base side, and then it was double header, so I got in the clubhouse with them between the games, talked to them, and then after the game I went back again. They all piled in that, 5 or 6 of them, I think, was Bob Skinner, Dick Hoke, and I forget, 2 or 3 of the other guys, and went out to dinner with them and everything else in that old car, and then took them back to the hotel and come home. So that was an interesting thing for a kid to do at that age. I was 18 or 19, I think, if I remember right. Not too...
19-1.
Yeah. So that was interesting. But there's a lot of things that happened back in the country. We didn't have electricity. We didn't have anything. My grandfather had a Delco unit. It wasn't until the South Mall was built that when they bought the property up to start the South Mall in Albany, there was tons of gravel bags, 3 gravel bags, got most of the gravel for the South Mall in Albany. And they gave Bill Hall and the town of Steventown a ton of money in the early 60s to widen the roads. And the minute they widened them out, they were still dirt, but the county took them over, and that's where all the gravel. It wasn't nice. You'd have 50, 60 trucks going by your house a day, and you couldn't leave your windows open because it was all dirt and dust and everything. But the county took them over so that the town couldn't say anything about all the traffic on the roads. But Shines, Gravel Bank, where Fawn Ridge is today, they had 2 entrances. Right across that swamp was the exit road, and they leveled that whole place off, and now there was after its thing. When I was a kid, old Belton Hassett had cut hay on there, and he'd fall asleep on his wagon and take up most of the road, and I came to Steventown for something. I met him right on them Swan Neck curves. I ended up on a bank around him, and I don't think he ever did wake up. It was interesting. But it was a one-lane dirt road, and all of them were. But they widened about, and I guess it was for the betterment of everything. But a lot of people didn't think so at the time, you know. So That's about all. I'll be short. And that's it. If anybody wants to leave this, look at this picture here, just how narrow. I had that horse for, it wasn't mine, the guy up the road to Tiff's old place, and he was only there around on weekends in 53 and 54, and the horse used to come down to our house because they had animals and horses, and the guy said, well, you might as well keep it, bring him back on the weekend when I come home. And I had him for 2 years till the Steventown firebug burnt the old farmhouse down, and he sold out and went on his way. I don't know whatever happened to the horse, but it was a nice little Morgan horse. So.